What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Game, your one source for everything cool in video games. You can be a part of our show by going to insidethegame.ca or joining our Discord, where there you can submit your clip and end off our show. Coming up on this week's episode, we've got the Marvel Avengers, we got Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning, that's making its return, and we're also returning to an old classic segment, Game Relics. Now before we get started, the guys and I are heading to Big Brothers Big Sisters charity stream over at Rogers TV and twitch.tv/theofficialitg. We're gaming on September 18th at noon Eastern, 24 games in 24 hours. That's a whole lot of games. And while we're there, we're talking to developer interviews, we're going to be doing giveaways, and a whole lot more. So make sure you swing by, we hope to see you there. So now, here's the inside scoop.
So some cool news coming out of Nintendo's camp. Mario Kart Live Home Circuit is going to be available on October 16th. Now this one looks pretty cool. It's actually going to be using your Switch and a real Mario Kart kind of mini go-kart model that has a camera mounted on the top of it. And the way this works is you use your Nintendo Switch, and what you do is you control the cart and you drive it around a room in your house or a big area. And what you can do is actually basically digitally paint a track around the room, and they actually get some physical gates that you can set up and making kind of a whole little racetrack around your room, which looks pretty cool. And the way it works is you can have up to 4 of these carts hooked up and playing, and you'll be playing on the Nintendo Switch while these carts be zooming around your room, so you better be either sitting up high on something or in another room looking down into it or something. But this actually, honestly, for the first time in a long time, this looks like one of the coolest kind of video game toy things I've seen personally that I think, you know, kids and adults combined are gonna love, because this one is one of those just kind of one-off things that Nintendo's so good at putting out, and I think this one's really gonna hit. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing what the price on these are. Currently we don't know anything about that, so that'll be a big factor in whether it's, you know, seems manageable to jump into something like this. Nintendo usually does a good job with this stuff, so it'll be interesting to see come October 16th what these ones are gonna be all about.
Back at E3 2019, Ubisoft revealed Gods and Monsters. Everybody was getting the Breath of the Wild kind of vibe from this game, and its initial release date was February 25th, 2020. That's been and gone, and we're about to get some more news on the game on September 10th. We'll also have a little insight on this one as well, so you definitely want to check out our live stream when we'll be on twitch.tv/theofficialitg. But what does Gods and Monsters evolve into? Well, we'll tell you. It was actually Eurogamer who got a statement out of Ubisoft saying the game formerly known as Gods and Monsters has evolved in surprising ways, which is common when developing exciting new worlds. Much has changed since the E3 2019 demo in terms of features, tone, art, and character design, and even the name of the game. The game formerly known as Gods and Monsters has been completely overhauled, and now the name is changed to Immortals Phoenix Rising. Again, more on that on September 10th. Stick around after we cover the live stream of the Ubi Forward, because we'll have more in-depth conversation to talk about. You're going to want to see this.
Alright, so I have a weird bit of news this time, and kind of blindsided me earlier this week. I'm talking about Left 4 Dead 2 and it getting a new update after nearly a decade of being released. So officially, Valve has announced that there's going to be an update that was actually handcrafted by the community. And if you all know Valve, they love kind of letting the community build upon what they've created. And it's really cool to see them kind of implement this in a long lost and somewhat forgotten franchise. But that'll to say, Valve, they actually kind of keep this game updated. Back in July, they actually released a patch just kind of fixing a couple things. So, you know, for a game that's been out for almost a decade, I'm really excited to see this new mode called The Last Stand. And if you are a fan of the first one, you might actually recognize this, because this is actually some sort of wave-based survival mode. So, that all being said, I can't wait to see more about this, and let me know what you think. Do you still play Left 4 Dead 2? I know that I haven't played Left 4 Dead 2 in at least 5 years, so I'm actually going to check this out 100% when it comes out, because if the community is working this hard on something and Valve's going to put it in there, it's got to be good.
EA Play, formerly EA Access, is now available on Steam. It's a subscription service for $4.99 a month or $29.99 a year that actually allows you access to a library of games like Titanfall series, Need for Speed, Battlefront 2, Battlefield, A Way Out, Mass Effect Dragon Age, Dead Space, Dragon Age Inquisitions. There's a ton of games here that you can kind of jump into right away, but that's not it. You also save 10% on any new game purchases or downloads, DLC packages, anything like that, which is a pretty awesome deal, because who doesn't mind saving a few bucks when you're already spending a little extra into a game. So that's always nice. And you also get the ability every once in a while for certain EA titles, new titles that are coming out, you get 10 hours of new preview access to it, and it's actually not a game demo. So if you decide to purchase the full game, that 10 hours of play that you have will actually carry over into the new into the game when you buy it in full, which is actually a pretty awesome thing. So, you know, a lot of times when we play betas and things like that, our progress doesn't carry over. So if you decide to play the full game and you really do enjoy your first 10 hours, it's kind of an extra bonus. So I think having EA Play on Steam is going to be a really nice addition.
Next-gen consoles are just around the corner, but what's that mean for our old library of games? Are we going to be able to carry those forward? We do know for the Xbox Series X, that's a possibility, and a lot of those games will be coming with us on next-gen consoles. But for the PlayStation 5, it's still pretty well unknown. We do know that up to 100 titles for the PlayStation 4 will be compatible with the PlayStation 5, but what about old gen? What about PlayStation 1, 2, and 3? According to a support FAQ from Ubisoft, that's not going to happen. It was filed as a patent over in Japan, but Sony's never stated whether or not those gen consoles will be moving forward. It's unfortunate if they don't see us moving forward with the PlayStation 5, but looks like you're going to have to be breaking out your old consoles to play the old gen PlayStation.
Alright, so unfortunately we got news about Chivalry 2 and it being delayed until 2021. So is this a bit of a surprise? Not so much, because, you know, with COVID and everything that's going on and the size and scope that Chivalry 2 is going for, I mean, it kind of was half expected. But that also means that the summertime beta that we are expecting is also delayed till an unknown time. But Torn Banner Studios, what they said is that since it's being delayed, they're actually going to have more content upon release. So that means more maps, some more modes, but unfortunately not horses. They said they still have more time in the training stables for that. But what do you guys think about Chivalry 2? I'm actually really excited. I'm not too hard pressed about it being delayed, but please let us know.
Who would have thought it's been 35 years since the release of Super Mario Bros. Was released on Nintendo NES? Well, to celebrate this 35-year anniversary, Nintendo are bringing out a few awesome things to help us celebrate with them. One of them being Mario Kart's live home circuit, which Corey mentioned earlier. Well, another title they're bringing is Mario 3D All-Stars, which is coming to the Switch, which is 3 awesome games for one amazing price. And these games include Super Mario 64, and Super Mario Sunshine. Super Mario Galaxy. All 3 games have updated Joy-Con controls with Rumble, and players will still be able to use the motion controls in Super Mario Galaxy if they wish. Furthermore, while each game will have a higher resolution, Super Mario Sunshine will also be presented with an updated 16:9 aspect ratio. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, this is an amazing offer, and you can actually pre-order it now because it gets released on September the 18th. But I wouldn't stick around too long wondering whether to purchase it or not, because by the end of March in 2021 you will no longer be able to get this game. So as you know, with Nintendo games, they still hold their price and they'll be very hard to get hold of. So what are you waiting for?
Nate, we're off to the kingdom. I'm re-reckoning. Nate, you and I checked out a game that came back from the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 days, Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning. This, honestly, to me, felt like I was still playing on the PS3. How about you, Nate?
Well, buddy, much like you, man, this game does feel very dated.
Yeah.
There are some absolutely outstanding moments about this game. And,
Absolutely.
You know, features about this game that I believe are better than most games nowadays.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about the pros, man. I think the story in itself is
cool.
Pretty. Yeah, it is really cool. It instantly, in my opinion, kind of captivates you because it starts you off where you're being dragged along and you're this dead guy, and I guess they were
or
whoever
girl.
you were. Yeah. So you are actually getting tested on. And they ditch your body and you wake up in a whole pile of dead bodies, and
Yeah.
that'll just say you're escaping this building and these people are like, wow, you survived our spell, and you don't even know what's going on. Your memory's gone and you're just kind of aimlessly trying to escape. And once you finally get out there and kind of get an understanding of what's going on, you are this creature, this anomaly that actually changes the fate of those whose fate's already been written.
Yep.
It's kind of really cool, man. Like, I want to call you like the fate bringer. Like there's all these immortals, and the way this game's kind of written is everything that's breeze or comes from dust, they say in the game, has a written path, but you change that, and that is really cool, man.
It's empowering to have this opportunity to kind of go out and set your own fate within the game and the fate of others, right? And that's what the game brings. Kingdoms of Amalur brings that opportunity of you to kind of mess with people if you want to, or you can coincide with them, or you can just leave them alone. There's so many dialogue options, and I think that's really cool when you jump into an RPG like this and you can really get invested. It was just hard to get invested when I felt like I was looking at such an outdated game. Like, this is supposed to be more or less a remastering of the game, and to me, man, the graphics really kind of held me back. But once I was able to kind of get past that, I really started to get into the campaign and start digging into the story. And then I'm talking to this person, and I'm off talking to this person, and then my loot is like loaded, right? And then I gotta go sell my stuff. And then I talked to this one guy, and he's like, okay, I've got the Red Legion after me, but in order to get rid of them, I have to kill these other two guys that came with me when we left them. So I set on this quest, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I have the option here. A, I can just leave them alone. B, I can help them out. Or C, just tell them to take a hike, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different opportunities here. So I go out and I set out on this quest. And I run into the next guy, and I get his dagger. So I've got 2 daggers now at this point, Nate. And I need 1 more to go. And I have the opportunity, when I finally run into this guy, I can either kill him, give him the 2 daggers that I already have, or I think I also had the opportunity to maybe just like, you can like almost like sweet talk the guy, right? Like, I'm a female character. So I had this opportunity to maybe just talk to the guy. So I ended up fighting him instead. So I fought him off, took the dagger, and then I'm out to set off to hand them in, right? It's like free this one captive. But that was a side quest I didn't even have to worry about doing. And it's one of those games that you set out in one direction with one idea in mind, but then you head off in like 3 others. It really kind of gets you wrapped in and entangled in this weaving mess of a world. It's pretty cool. I gotta be honest, man.
It's in some senses handcrafted really well. Like, I think traversing around, it's built really easily, so you can kind of get from point A to point B very quickly. But on the other hand, it just kind of like you said, man, it just feels dated. It's a little empty. I don't know. You kind of walk around in this big forest area that in some ways looks really good, but on the other hand, it's like, well, there's like 3 wolves here. Yeah. There's no, like, I don't know, wildlife, and just, I don't know. The game just feels very
blown in the wind.
It's just outdated, man. It's kind of got that Fable 3, which is an old game kind of style, which a very good game, but man, I don't know.
It's just
one thing I must kind of, yeah, man. I think I maybe would have appreciated if they maybe would have upgraded the graphics with this one, because it's kind of hard recommending it when it just looks so outdated. But on the other hand, if graphics really don't disturb you, then I think the combat and then the story itself will actually drive you forward. Because man, the combat's pretty cool, man. There are a ton of different weapons, spells and skills that you can use, and you know, as you further upgrade your character, you can kind of specialize in certain ways, and it's really expansive in that sense. And the combat, it can be tricky. Like there's difficulty settings, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. You know, I'm playing on a harder difficulty. Wow, this game can be quite challenging. It's almost kind of got that Dark Souls-y parrying, dodging kind of style, but less like that, where you can kind of combo out and destroy things. It's pretty cool, man, I think.
I played on normal. I thought the combat was relatively simplistic, but yet it's satisfying. You know what I mean? I didn't find my dodge always worked when I wanted it to. I think that was my biggest problem too in the combat. When I was fighting off some of these wolves and then I want to get out of the way, when I hit circle, man, it just wasn't moving quick enough for me. So I don't know if that was just a timing thing on my part, but it just wasn't the responsiveness I was looking for with an updated version of the game. Like, we have standards now that just, it wasn't following into some of those footsteps. When you're playing the Division 2, the minute I hit my button to dodge, I'm out, right? Where this one has got this sense of a delay to it, and it takes a little bit longer to kind of get out of the way. Man, and then you get into the systems itself, and then you get into your skill tree, and there's so much content. Oh, man, but then you're in there, and it just felt a little clunky to kind of maneuver around. It's simple, but I felt it just wasn't intuitive to me when I'm playing the game to actually get in the menus and get easily out of the menus, and where I didn't find that I was always stuck in a menu. Nate, I think we're done reckoning everything. What are you scoring Kingdoms of Amalur a re-reckoning?
Well, dude, I must say this game feels slightly outdated, just mostly graphically, man, but the story is absolutely outstanding. The combat is fairly simple, but can be kind of somewhat complicated at the same time. So, man, I'm gonna have to give this one a 6.5, man. Yeah, what about you?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? We're kind of all over the place here. The graphics, I think, were a major hindrance to the game. It would have stepped and elevated the game up to that next level that we really wanted from a remastered of this game. I think it would have been a nice touch. The controls feel a little outdated, but there's so much to upgrade and so much armor to consider and things to do, and you know, I'm out there pickpocketing and picklocketing people and stealing from them and trying not to get caught, and then if I wanted to you can wipe out the town. Like there's so much content within the game. It's just things you don't think of that are not even in other games that are in this game. And I thought that was so cool, but yeah, unfortunately, man, the game overall just feels outdated, and because of that, I'm there with the 6.5 as well.
We might have been victorious, but the Fae are creatures of magic.
Pretty decent, but hindered truly by its graphic fidelity.
Each two eyes are fallen on the battlefield would soon rise again. For the Fae do not know death as we do. How could we stand against such a force? For 10 years the war raged. For 10 years the armies of men and Alpha fought and died. But as our numbers dwindled, we knew that it was only a matter of time. Our fate had been written. At least, that is what we believed. Until you died.
The ITG crew is getting together for one of the biggest events this year. The big game is on, and it's coming September 18th to the 19th. The ITG crew is going live for 24 hours in hopes to raise money for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, a great cause and a great community that you can be a part of. Big Brothers Big Sisters is a youth mentoring organization that has been in existence over 100 years in Canada. Their mission is to enable life-changing mentoring relationships that ignite the power and potential of young people. With 100 agencies countrywide and 42 agencies in Ontario, the reach is extensive and the results are undeniable. Currently, Big Brothers Big Sisters serve over 41,000 children nationwide, with the dedicated assistance of 19,000 mentor volunteers that choose to join their agencies. They are able to work within the communities to strengthen the relationships of caring adults for vulnerable youth. And there's many ways for you to get involved. You can get involved on September 18th and 19th over on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/theofficialitg, Rogers TV, and of course our website at insidethegame.ca/thebiggame. We'll be live for 24 hours in hopes to raise money for the beautiful kids of Big Brothers and Big Sisters. We're there, you can help support and donate, and we'll be live gaming for 24 hours. That's 24 games in 24 hours. That's a lot of gaming. But we'll also be talking to developers of their upcoming titles, and we'll be doing a few giveaways. So we hope to see you there.
This week I'm checking out a really cool card game on the Switch with a pretty neat board game twist.
A true strategy collectible card game with a unique living board. Lay down pieces of the board in order to place the creatures in your hand. You will have to strike a balance of attacking, defending, and gathering the resource known as Faeria.
This week I got a great opportunity to check out Faeria on the Nintendo Switch. It's a deck building card battler with a couple cool interesting twists. And if you've played any of these kind of card battling games before, they're very similar in the sense of how you kind of deploy your cards and how every card has, you know, health points and attack points. Some have debuffs, buffs for your team, debuffs for the other team. There's definitely a lot of that in this game as well. But the one big major difference is actually the game board. How you play your cards in this game is very interesting. Instead of just a table that your hand of cards gets laid out on while you play against your opponent, we've actually got a hexagonal tile-shaped game board, which I thought was really interesting, because the way they implement this is that we actually have, instead of just having our cards dealt to us every turn, we have the opportunity to use Faeria, which is the magic in this game that allows us to deploy our cards, and in the top left corner of every card you'll see the number of Faeria it will take to actually summon that card onto the game board. But we actually have like terrain tiles or land tiles that we get to put down, and you have to put these tiles down to be able to play your cards down on top of these tiles, and then you move those characters throughout the map as you lay your tiles down. And it's actually pretty interesting because there's a lot of strategy involved when you bring an element like this into a card battler. So it's not just the fact that, you know, this card has these stats and you know it can take out this guy, and you know it can take out this guy, and if this guy attacks you, it's going to take most of the health off him, but if your card gets taken away, you know you get to draw 2 cards because of the buff that card had. Well, all those same things come into play here with Faeria, but you actually have to understand that you need to move these cards around the board to be able to interact with the Faeria wells or attack other enemies, whether it be their cards or their god. And that really brings an interesting element into this game because it's not something I've ever seen in a card battler before, and you have to really think about where you want to place these tiles. And like I said, there's basic tiles that you will start with, and it's a 2-tile system where you actually get to lay down 2 tiles right at the beginning, which I think is super handy because there's also 5 other different styles of tiles that you can put down, and those ones you can actually only deploy 1 per turn, which is a little, it's not as nice, but again, the game board isn't gigantic, so it kind of keeps the pace of play at not breakneck speeds. So the idea with the other tiles is that they're all different terrains. We've kind of got like a desert plains, there's forest, mountain, water well, and like the basic tiles, like I said. So sorry, 4, and then the basic tile make 5. So the idea with these other terrain tiles is that some cards that you may get in your hand will actually require you to have a certain number of one of those tiles already played on the board to be able to actually deploy that card. And you'll only be able to deploy that card on one of those styles of land tiles. So it really comes into play where you have to start thinking about, as you build your decks up with the cards that you have, you gotta have to make sure that you're going to be bringing cards up into your hand that you have land tiles already placed for, so you can start playing them. Because what will happen is you have a bunch of different types of cards with a whole bunch of different land tiles. It's going to require you to put down land tiles all over the map, and it's not going to be as easy because you're going to always just be looking to place those tiles to play the cards, when maybe if you already had a bunch of forest tiles laid down, you may have a handful of forest cards that you then can just start deploying and start taking out the other enemies. So there is a ton of strategy in this game, and honestly, I really think that's what makes this one stand alone. So Faeria is definitely a full game. We have a lot of different game modes to play. We have a single player that takes us through a very extensive tutorial that kind of really walks you through every step in this game. Like I said, card battlers are definitely games that you know, practice makes perfect. As you build a deck and kind of customize your play style, you know, you can really pick up on some of the nuances that the game wants you to. But when you first get into these games, sometimes they can seem overwhelming because there's usually so much information on screen. Every card usually has a little bit of information you need to read. Your opponent's cards have information you need to read. So there's a lot of different things that you kind of have to take into account in these games. But Faeria does a pretty good job right from the onset of bringing you kind of into this, holding your hand a little bit and showing you how this game works. Because of this tile system and how unique it is, it's, you know, you have to really kind of understand how to play this game with the cards and that movement aspect. So the fact that they have a pretty extensive tutorial makes this a little bit easier to get into, and you know, it rewards you pretty well along the way, because as you beat each tutorial level, you'll be unlocking experience points and more cards for your decks. So that is pretty neat, because as you go along, you can really start to customize what cards you have in your deck, so you definitely always know, you know, kind of what's coming up next or what you may have left in your deck, so you kind of can strategize a little bit better against your opponent. One of the big things in this game that really drew me in was the art style. It's done really well. The cards are drawn beautifully. The board is really detailed. I like the way everything looks. It's very visually pleasing, especially when you're kind of just staring at these cards this entire time. So it's nice to be able to, you know, have these nice aesthetically pleasing cards to look at. And it's just one of those types of games where, you know, it's got this beautiful audio track that kind of goes along with it as well. So when moments are intense, the music's going, and you know, it really kind of helps immerse you into a game that isn't maybe so action-packed necessarily, because it's just a card battler. But what is a card battler without a deck building mechanic? And we've got one in this as well, and it's laid out really well. And as you collect cards and finish missions and things like that, you're going to gain experience in the cards that you can add to your deck. But the ability to kind of lay out a bunch of custom decks as you go along, so you can maybe have certain themes for different missions or just different play styles, it allows you to really customize how you go through and build certain decks. And the idea is having it all laid out in front of you makes things so much easier, right? And Faeria just kind of really does that well. You see all your cards, the interface is really easy to understand, especially in the deck building area, and you can swap cards in and out fairly quickly. So you can create a new deck and hop back into a match and in no time, and that really counts for something in games like these, because you will spend a lot of time analyzing these decks, especially early on. So once you get used to the game, it's nice to be able to kind of jump in, jump out, add cards as you need to, or maybe remove some and make changes as they go. But it's just a really nice feature to have laid out well. I have enjoyed my time with Faeria, but there's a bit of an issue here. The game requires you to be online at all times, even during the single player. That doesn't make sense. Why do I have to be online to play this game, even in single player mode? And if you disconnect, or sorry, if your Switch sleeps on you, when you turn it back on, you may get the chance to reconnect and just join right back in where you were, but more than likely you're going to get booted back out to the menu and lose any progress you may have had before the Switch sleeps. That's just a feature I just don't quite understand that they thought would be acceptable. I understand nowadays that there's Wi-Fi pretty well everywhere, but the Nintendo Switch is meant to be portable. It's meant to be in vehicles. So the idea is, you know, we're not always going to have access to Wi-Fi, but we're going to have our Switch, and we're going to want to be able to play games. And this would be a great game to be able to jump in and play AI opponents if I couldn't hop online and play, you know, people in an unranked or ranked match. So it would be nice to be able to just jump in, but you don't have the option here, and honestly, that one really hurts this game. Needless to say, my time with Faeria has been enjoyable. I really like the way this game's laid out. I love the aspect of the tile game board. I love the art style, and the audio take was done really, really well. But that always having to be online to play this game, even in single player, just it hurts this game. If we didn't have that issue, I could rate this game significantly higher, but because of that, I can only give this one a 6.5.
Faeria is a solid card battler with a unique game board, and there's lots of game modes and some good online rank systems as well. But the need to be online all the time to play this game, even in single player, was a huge hit here.
All right, everybody, we're bringing back a relic. We're talking about game relics today, and it's one of those kind of segments we touch on every now and then because nostalgia kicks in, and it kicked in when I brought up the word Tenchu. This is a stealth action game set in 16th century, and it's made by a very popular developer from Software. Rings a bell. Man, oh man. And everything started, it's funny how this game kind of developed because it started with stealth ninja style game, and it came back, and their latest game, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but either way, they're still in that ninja kind of phase, right? They've gone away from the stealth mechanics of what Tenchu really kind of brought to the genre. It kind of had that innovation between that and Metal Gear that really spawned this whole stealth genre moving forward. It launched back in 1998.
Oh man,
and that's just a couple years old there, guys. And then the latest one we saw, so they had 9 titles, and the last one came out in 2009 on the Wii and the PlayStation Portable. So yeah, it's definitely been a while since we've seen a Tenchu game, but again, from Software, developing other games, still sticking with that ninja genre, but they really need to reboot the Tenchu series, man. Long-time favorite back from PlayStation. I'd love to see a new one. Nate, what do you got for us this week?
All right, man, so I'm going with an oldie and a fighting game, and we're going with the Def Jam series. And so there were 5 games in this series. More specifically, we all know about the main 2 and the original 2. So what I'm going to kind of mostly touch up on is Def Jam Fight for New York. I grew up playing this game. It had so many famous rappers, almost every rapper you could possibly think of. you know, at that time in the early 2000s was in that game. And the campaign was awesome. You actually customize your characters with different fighting abilities like submission or kickboxing. So anyways, man, that game was great, but over the years it really teetered off. 2004 was when Def Jam Fight for New York came out. And 2 years later, Def Jam Icon came out, and man, they completely changed the formula. And it just they went with this whole fight to the beat kind of thing, and I just didn't like it. And then, well, in 2010, we won't really speak of this game, but they came out with Def Jam Rapper, which is cool in its own sense, but I don't know why they kind of slapped that Def Jam title on there, because that was more of like a Guitar Hero or Rock Band style game. Wow. But anyways, man, this was such a great game, and unfortunately, it kind of explains it why it teetered off later on, because the original developers were AKI Corporation, and they were actually heavily known for wrestling games back in the late 90s to early 2000s. So it kind of explains it. They had a whole new developer, and you know, new FX with Icon just didn't really work, and it's too bad. But one last thing before I hand it to Corey. Back in 2018, there was a Twitter account holder placed, and it said, which city do we go to next? And it named 4 cities. But that was almost, you know, that was 2 years ago exactly now. So we haven't really heard much. I kind of heard something, a little tremor in the wind, you know, about, you know, maybe a possible remaster of the first 2. But ultimately, if we don't get that, I want a new one kind of like that. Nice. But Corey, where are you at, man? What's your
you know what? I'm telling you, I think Def Jam would have stayed relevant if they had the character in the game I'm about to talk about. And he is a rapper. Parappa the Rapper. That's right. Yeah. This game came out originally in 1996 in Japan, and then it went worldwide in 1997, published by Sony Entertainment. And you know what? This game is kind of near and dear to me. Like, when we do this segment, we always talk about nostalgia. And I was digging through the bank of games in the past. We've talked about a bunch, you know, in these past segments, but this one, it just hit me. And I was like, you know what? I love this game. I was so addicted. It's one of the first true rhythm games that came out on PlayStation, and it was just, it's that button matching Simon game that's essentially got made into a 2D rapping game, and it was just the way they did it. Like, it was just fun. It was challenging. I mean, maybe because I was younger at the time it was harder, but if I go back and play it now, it could be a different story. But they did come out with a sequel, Parappa the Rapper 2, in 2007, and they actually were talking about making it a mobile game in 2016, and they also did a refresh of the game in kind of 4K graphics, but it didn't get a whole lot of love, I guess. But you know what, because that game I don't necessarily think travels well through time, but I think that's a real cool style game that I think would work really well on a mobile platform. So I could see that game coming back in that sense, maybe not to a full console release again, but you know what, I just wanted to talk about Parappa one more time.
That's fair. There's always one Relic left to talk about, so why don't you hit us up on our Discord channel and let us know, what game are you missing? Nate, let's go.
Thanks.
Let's ready to assemble.
Hey, can you guys give us a moment?
What?
All this time I thought I was mentoring you, and I'd given up.
Nate, you and I got our teams together and we assembled the Avengers, and this is Crystal Dynamics' adventure into the world of Marvel. And to be honest, you, myself, and I think a lot of others were a little skeptical when they announced the game and the appearance of the Avengers heroes themselves. But once you get in there and start playing the game, the hands-on time just changes a bit of everything, doesn't it?
Oh man, absolutely. So the game, you know, starts you off with really having to play the campaign, and wow, it really just, in my opinion, captivates you right away. You start off by playing as Kamala Khan, and this is her first time appearing in a video game, I believe. And honestly, I think they did an extremely good job. I've never even heard of her character until, when we started playing this game. And honestly, she's one of my main characters playing through this game now. I thought the way that they introduced her, where she's really young and she's, meeting all the Avengers in these kind of quirky ways, it just really captivated that sort of fangirl moment. It's much like Spider-Man was with Tony Stark in the movies that we've all seen and all this stuff. So that all to say, man, the campaign was great. It really kind of has a lot of endearing moments and these really cool over-the-top cinematic moments that we're very familiar with in the Marvel Universe. And also just the characters, man. Like, the voiceovers were incredible, I thought.
No, absolutely. I think they had some top cast obviously in there with Troy Baker and Nolan North and a few others. The cast behind the voices were phenomenal, and that's what you expect from these people as well. We're used to them in other games, so to have that, it's funny because as you're playing Iron Man, I'm like, oh man, there's Drake. Like, that's not really Iron Man to me. But then as the game progresses along, then Nolan North kind of becomes Iron Man, and then you're getting other suits and things like that as you progress through the game. I think the biggest thing about the game for me is how it makes me feel like I'm playing the Marvel movie. You touched on the cinematics, Nate, and it drives home those highlight moments that you get from the movie when you watch them in theaters. And to have that experience here in a video game and to be able to live that yourself, I thought it was so cool. You had these over-the-top moments of what you experience in a Marvel Avengers game or in a movie, and then you get into the game and those moments are there. And then there's also enduring moments too with Kamala and her father and a few other figures that are kind of scattered throughout the game. So you're kind of up one moment and then you're kind of down on the next a little bit because it's a bit quieter, so it's got this ebb and flow throughout the game on the campaign. And then once you wrap up the campaign is technically when the game's really supposed to take off. It's a games of service, so that we kind of get used to these when you talk about The Division or Destiny 2, for example, right? When we talk about these games of service, or Anthem, and kind of the stumbles that they've had, well, we sort of kind of wheel back a few things here, because when we get into multiplayer side, Nate, you and I couldn't really exactly connect when we wanted to all the time. And that's, again, when it's a game as a service, you're looking for that connectivity to be able to go out there and experience the world of Avengers together. And though you and I did it on certain moments, we weren't able to do it on others. So we were having this issue back and forth, and it was kind of frustrating. But the highlight of the game for me at the moment is the story. But now that we're done, now what?
We'll explain later. Don't worry, she's up to it.
So now that you've completed the campaign, like you said, you're out there kind of grinding your way out, looting different loot boxes, completing missions and challenges to further upgrade your character. And the power system isn't too complex. There's about 4 armor pieces plus an artifact that affect your overall power level. And within these, they unfortunately don't actually affect your overall look, but just kind of give you buffs like critical hit chance or damage buffs or certain things like that. But honestly, man, that's kind of like we were complaining a while ago about I don't know how I feel about how you get this really cool purple piece of gear, but it doesn't actually affect how you look, but instead you're kind of stuck out searching for cosmetics or perhaps spending additional money on them.
Absolutely, Nate. I think the gear grind for me is the biggest downfall within the game. I'm out there looting, and I love getting my character for the next power level and leveling up my character. And you go to the challenge card, and then as you progress through there, you unlock skins and stuff. But it's when you go out in these games of service, as we touched on before, you go out there to get gear to change the customization of your character. And the way that Crystal's done it this time, Crystal Dynamics took a different approach, and the fact that all you do is level up your power level. It does not change it cosmetically, which is honestly a little bit disappointing. I would have loved to see my Hulk look differently on his arms, to maybe no beard, having a beard, maybe his hairstyle's a little bit differently, a helmet of something, you know what I mean? Something on that line.
Well, I'm a firm believer that if it's an RPG game, you're grinding towards looking cool. You're grinding for armor and weapons, and that's what you want to, you know, you want to look cool. So
absolutely. But they've done that here with cosmetics, and that's their approach. So they've done, you go out, you gear up, and you power up. But to change your actual overall appearance, you go to cosmetics. So instead, it's just a different skin, not a piece of gear that's going to change you cosmetically, but a whole complete reskin of the character. So you got different appearances for Hulk or for Black Widow and things like that, and they look cool, Nate, but
they do look great.
Oh man, that should have been an extra feature afterwards. You know what I mean? I want to go out there to gear up and then change my wristband or change my shirt or do something along that line when it comes to a game like this.
I think you'll find this shield familiar, Stark.
How original. You gonna steal my haircut next? Oh wait.
The damage has already been done, Avengers. No one will...
Kamala, Tony, we're trying to restart the engines, but there's not enough power. We're out of time, people. Brace for impact.
We're ready to score this one as well. How do you score in Marvel's Avengers from Crystal Dynamics?
Well, I have to score it at its current state, right? So, you know, perhaps in a couple weeks from now, you know, they could release a couple updates that might change my score. But considering how poor the servers are and, you know, just the overall armor system not being quite maybe what I wanted it to be, it's gonna have to get an 7.5. It was really tricky, man. Honestly, this is a very close 10 if the servers were better and maybe some of the graphical things, like some of the glitches that happens periodically, maybe some of those things were cleaned up. But man, it was really tough to score this one, as you could tell. But what are you gonna score this one, buddy?
There's definitely some bugs. Like Kamala Khan had her arm all the way across the screen and it stayed there the entire mission. So, you know, there are some things and some kinks that they still have to work out. The connection issue, obviously, when you're connecting with your friends online is a major component to the game. And currently, it doesn't really work all that well. Sometimes you're able to get in, most times you're just not. So that's a definite problem as well. And yeah, I was kind of back and forth. Where do I score this because of these issues that we're having? But when you play the single player campaign, dude, it's a Marvel movie.
It's incredible.
Like that's what you want out of this experience. And that, for me, that was there. So now I'm done the campaign. Now it's into the end game, and the end game you can't connect is a major problem. So unfortunately, that's going to leave me at an 8.
A true Marvel experience, only hindered by its microtransaction scheme and online connectivity issues.
I was just agreeing with you, big guy. That banner is a coward.
Guys, don't do this! This is exactly what Tarleton wants!
I'd stay out of this one, kid. Get home, bud? Or just going stop! Touch me, you're punching back!
Alright, so for this week, I'm doing something different for the mobile mention because it's not only available on your mobile device, it's available on your Xbox One, your PS4, your Switch, even your PC. But this free-to-play game is Fallout Shelter. Yes, I know this game is a little bit old, but if you have never checked it out, now is better than ever, I guess. Because in this game, you start off with this tiny vault with just a handful of dwellers. And upon playing the game, you expand your vault to this massive monument with tons and tons of dwellers. I mean 200 people that you have to micromanage within your vault at max capacity, which is insane because in this game you're sending your guys out on quest, defending your vault from attacks, and just leveling up your characters. Each of these dwellers has a level cap of 50, and you can actually level up their special stats all the way up to 10 like you can in every Fallout game. So it has all this kind of quirkiness from the Fallout universe in the quests and within the game itself, along with some legendary characters from the Fallout universe like Preston Garvey and some of the other ones from Fallout 3 and New Vegas. So that all being said, you have to check this game out. I have sunk a ridiculous amount of time on my Xbox One and even some time on my phone. So check it out because now is better than ever.
Hey guys, my name's Adam. I'm here with an original take on the murder mystery genre, the new game called Jessika. Check it out.
I really liked going to school back then, when I was a kid. As long as it was just me, I was kind of his princess. So I had a pretty good childhood. And then? Yeah? Well, then I met Sasha. And then my father simply left. Yeah, and then I hurt myself all the time somehow.
Developed by Try Games, Jessika is a deep story about a woman who has recently committed suicide. Hired by a tech company, White Flower, it's up to you to hack your way into Jessika's past by uncovering files throughout her digital footprint. Now, Jessika's father suspects foul play and wants you to find out what happened to his daughter. And this is done through a software program called WhatsApp. With the program, it's your job to search relevant keywords to uncover Jessika's videos that lead you down a long path of further clues and more keywords to enter. As you uncover more of these keywords, you begin to unlock more secure videos and gain higher levels of encryption clearance. You're also not alone in the endeavor, as you have some help from your colleagues. Jessika's father's always pressing questions, always wants to be updated, and there's a mysterious rival hacker that's attempting to stop you from getting any further.
Hi, ich bin die Jessika. Und jetzt erzähle ich euch mal was über meine Kindheit.
They sure didn't manage to do that with us. I won't put up with it anymore.
So it's pretty interesting as you start to uncover more and more of these videos and get more and more encryption clearance. You really start to see Jessika start to change. She was brought up in an abusive household, a broken home. She was a former athlete that got kind of tossed to the side when she was injured, and she was actually abused by her coach too. So she definitely has a lot of trust issues. So it's no surprise later when you start to see her going down the wrong path. She meets her new boyfriend Sasha, and they are in a German nationalist gang, and they call themselves the Wolves. And they feel like they're doing the good fight for their country by trying to get rid of any foreign influence. They begin to assault people, cause havoc all across Germany. This is where the message of the game really takes off, and you see it's not just any regular game, that there's a pretty powerful political stance that Jessika and the Wolves have. I must say I was actually really impressed by the actress in this, the Jessika. She definitely transforms. You know, there's about probably 8 or 9 different variety sets of videos where she has, you know, a different costume on, but she does a really good job acting from the start through the transformation of Jessika in the end before she actually commits suicide. Whereas where I think the game kind of missed the mark and maybe got a little bit annoying for me was, I guess while you are hacking in to her digital footprint, someone is also hacking in trying to stop you from finding and uncovering all this stuff. And so it'll actually like shake your computer and glitch, and sometimes it'll close all your windows. And yeah, the first couple of times, you know, it kind of gives you a little bit of a fright. But then it just kind of got annoying as you go on and on. It happens a little more frequently, or if you put in wrong keywords, it'll just kind of close everything. This game does a good job with the communication between your colleagues and Jessica's increasingly irritable father through the text on the app, and it helps really drive the story at the start. A little later in the game, when you've kind of gained your momentum in the searches, the group chat does get kind of annoying, and all the constant emails I didn't find very useful when I was using my searches. So at the end of the game, it kind of left me wanting a bit more. It is a fairly short game, but I felt like it could have finished off quite a bit stronger. However, you know, if this interested you, I definitely would recommend checking it out. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Well, that'll wrap up this week's episode. What did you think of Marvel Avengers? Are you still jumping into that one, or are you finished? Let us know at insidethegame.ca, where there you can also submit your clip, or on our Discord channel, just like Asad did. He's hitting it up in Modern Combat 3. He's going mobile for this one. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week inside the game.